Testing. Like, I feel so powerful.
Ooh, I don't like this.
It's my karaoke mic.
This is Jade Abdul Malik. She is our associate producer and resident Zoomer, which is how we're able to stay so relevant.
But you have a personal karaoke mic?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
You don't?
Okay, Jade, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Yeah.
Oh, my go-to karaoke song, Burning Up by the Jonas Brothers.
Let's hear it. How does that one go?
Classy,
Jade? I don't even know that one.
I'm hot.
She's ready.
You're cold.
Oh, and on pitch.
You go around.
Oh, she got vibrato.
Come on. I am still 9 years old in my head, okay?
I'm just gonna say, that was a very solid performance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Jade, let's go. Let's do it, girl.
Okay, let me press record on my phone and my Audacity thing. All right, cool.
Okay, so in the interest of full transparency, Jade is the only one of us that's actually not in the studio. She's at home. And where are you, Jade?
I'm in Clarkston, Georgia.
I feel myself getting a little antsy about this already because I know the story that you're going to pitch, and and it's not an easy one.
It sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. So let's just rip that Band-Aid off. Jade, do you want to just tell a story?
Yeah, let's do that. So this is a story about a counselor and a camper. One morning, years ago, a family dropped off their 4-year-old son for his first day of summer camp. So picture, a regular summer camp with all the fixings. We're talking games, crafts, sports, and like a lot of summer camps, the counselors were mostly young adults. The one in this story was 18 years old. And the place where he would cross paths with the camper was in the deep end of a swimming pool.
Oh God, I'm already bracing myself.
Yeah, so it was later that day, and a bunch of the campers were in a big swimming pool, just swimming around, having fun. And the counselors were also splashing around with them. And one of the campers was the 4-year-old boy, and one of the counselors was the 18-year-old teenager.
And remind me, the 4-year-old didn't actually know how to swim, right?
Exactly. He did not know how to swim at all. In fact, in an earlier swim test that day, counselors had given him a swim test and determined that the camper should not swim in the deep end of the pool at all. But I guess the 18-year-old counselor didn't know that, because according to reports, he was roughhousing with the 4-year-old, dunking him under the water, not just once or twice, but 12 times. And at some point, the counselor swam away from the 4-year-old boy, and he was left alone in the water.
Wait, so there weren't even other kids in the pool?
No, he was just unattended in that area of the pool where, unbeknownst to everyone around him, he was struggling to stay afloat. Eventually, according to surveillance footage, the boy lost that struggle and floated face down in the water for over 8 minutes. In those 8 minutes, other camp counselors were swimming with other campers, and lifeguards were distracted. And by the time someone noticed, the little boy was dead.
Yeah, wow. It's just so awful. I hate this.
I know. It's the hardest thing to think about, and a parent's worst nightmare. I mean, can you imagine that family expecting to pick their child up that day, his very first day of camp, and instead getting a call that there's been an accident?
I mean, yeah, it's unthinkable. Do you want to talk about what they did with those feelings?
Yeah, I mean, so the whole thing here is you've got this small child and a counselor who has been entrusted with his care, and by all accounts, there was some dereliction of duty. Somebody screwed up. And from this family's perspective, they wanted justice. So they tried to get the state to pursue criminal charges, but the state decided not to, deciding, I guess, that was just an accident.
So it was never deemed a crime?
Yeah, it was never deemed a crime. And that's one of the things I found interesting about this, how this terrible tragedy occurred, and how one side felt certain that a crime had occurred, but how, absent those charges, it was considered simply an accident.
I mean, it was an accident, but I still understand that instinct to want to pursue something, I don't know, more severe because this family is facing the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, and an experience like that throws the universe out of alignment, and sometimes it feels like the only thing that can correct that imbalance is equally extreme action. And criminal charges seem like they are the only legally acceptable form of extreme retribution like that. But even then, like, there's nothing that can rebalance harm like that. So where did that leave the family?
Yeah, so they ended up filing a civil lawsuit against the camp, and they won $16 million. But they didn't get any kind of judgment against the counselor, who, mind you, was only 18 years old, which is to say, you know, he's technically an adult, but definitely still a kid. And that idea that this kid carried the guilt of that accident is a big part of what drew me to this story.
Yeah, I know you have a pretty special connection to the story. Do you want to unpack that a little bit?
I mean, yeah, I was a camp counselor once. And of course it was fun and wonderful and all those things, but I've had close calls as a camp counselor, and losing someone's child under my responsibility, under my care, it's painful to think about. And so this story it was jarring to realize that this was a nightmare that became a reality for this family and that counselor.
And I guess just to sort of wrap it up, why weren't we able to do this story?
So, in a lot of these stories that we talked about for this episode, a lot of our producers weren't able to talk to their sources to begin with, but I had the opportunity to talk to both the counselor and the camper's father, and they agreed to talk about this story. But we chose not to pursue this story for a different reason. I realized that although the counselor was ready to be a part of this healing journey for the camper's family, the camper's family was still at the very same place emotionally and mentally when they found out that their son was gone. They were still in that same place of trauma and loss. And I wanted to respect both parties, both the counselor and the camper's family. So I decided personally not to pursue this story.
Yeah, I think you made the right call.
Yeah.
We never want to cause more harm with the stories that we are telling, and this felt like it was so raw that we actually had the potential to be re-harming these people by talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. The risk was too high. So it was a good choice not to do it.
You're a good counselor, Jade.
Thank you, Emma.
All right. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little peek behind the curtain. And if you didn't, that's cool too. We'll be back with a bunch of new episodes starting January 25th. Until then, thank you for listening, and Happy New Year. Crime Show is a Spotify original podcast and Gimlet production. Crime Show is produced by me, Emma Cortland, along with Jerome Campbell, Kat Schupknecht, and Jade Abdul Malik. Our supervising producer is Mitch Hansen. Production oversight by Colin Campbell. Fact-checking by Nicole Pasulka. Crime Show's editor and unspoken hero is Devin Taylor. She refused to get on the mic this year, but rest assured, Devin, we'll get you next year. Theme song by So Wiley. Mixing and sound design by Daniel Ramirez. Original music by So Wiley and Dara Hirsch. A quick warning before we get started. This episode contains descriptions of violence and some explicit language. Take care when listening. There is a war in Jennifer Weiss between who she is and who she thinks she's supposed to be. Two loyalties that started competing one day when Jennifer was just 4 years old. Her older brothers were outside playing with some neighbor kids when she heard them say her name, along with this other word that she'd never heard before.
So I overheard them say she's adopted. Yeah, she was adopted. And I remember going in and asking what that meant.
Jennifer's mother, Agnes, sat her down and told her that adopted meant that she was special.
She just said that I was special and that they got me from a place where kids get to have new families when they need a family.
Jennifer was just a little kid at the time, so all she really wanted to know was why? Why did Jennifer need a new family? What had happened to her old family? Agnes did her best to answer. She told Jennifer that her biological parents had died. But over the years, Jennifer realized there was something funny about Agnes's answers. Specifically, that the manner of her parents' death seemed to change.
And, she would say, in the beginning, she said, your parents died in a motorcycle accident. And then they died in a fire. They were always together, though.
It was a convenient answer. The kind, Jennifer assumed, that adoptive parents use when they want their kids to stop asking questions.
They wanted me to think everything was cool. Who would ever have wanted me to find out what I found out?
I'm Emma Cortland. This is Crime Show.
This episode is brought to you by Marriott Bonvoy Traveler. Looking for new travel ideas? About the Journey is the podcast that takes you on a road trip where it's about more than the destination. Join host Anika Raymond, a travel journalist and a Marriott Bonvoy member, to explore inspiring stories and locally loved stops along iconic drives. Listen to About the Journey on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Dawn Easy Squeeze. Life is hard, but dishes shouldn't be. That's why Dawn created Easy Squeeze. It flips dish soap on its head, literally. The inverted design means you can finally reach that last